Welcome to the Inprint online reading series. I'm Rich Levy, Executive Director of Inprint, and it's my great pleasure to introduce our friend Martha Serpas. Martha is a faculty member of the prestigious University of Houston Creative Writing Program and the author of two poetry collections, Cote Blanche and The Dirty Side of the Storm. Her work has appeared in The New Yorker, The Nation, Southwest Review, and Image, a journal of the arts and religion, as well as in a number of anthologies, including the Library of America's American Religious Poems. She holds degrees in English and creative writing from Louisiana State University, New York University, and the University of Houston, where she earned her PhD, and a master's in divinity from Yale. Martha is also a trauma chaplain at Memorial Hermann Hospital. Martha's work takes her love of southern Louisiana, her rebel and poignant Catholicism, as Harold Bloom calls it, her passion for language that is both common and rich, and her need to come at reality at an oblique angle, and mixes it all into a thoughtful and occasionally ecstatic verse that is both powerful and rewarding. Please welcome Martha Serpas.
I'm going to read the opening poem from Cote Blanche, As If There Were Only One. In the morning, God pulled me onto the porch, a rain-washed gray and brilliant shore. I sat in my orange pajamas and waited. God said, "Look at the tree," and I did. Its leaves were newly yellow and green, slick and bright, and so alive it hurt to take the colors in. My pupils grew hungry and wide against my will. God said, "Listen to the tree," and I did. It said, "Live," and it opened itself wider, not with desire, but the way I imagine a surgeon spreads the ribs of a patient in distress and rubs her paralyzed heart. Only this tree parted its own limbs toward the sky. I was the light in that sky. I reached into the thick, sweet core, and I lifted it to my mouth and held it there for a long time, until I tasted the word, tree, because I had forgotten its name. Then I said my own name twice, softly. Augustine said, "God loves each of us as if there were only one of us," but I hadn't believed him. And God put me down on the steps with my coffee and my cigarettes, and although I still could not eat nor sleep, that evening and that morning were my first day back. I want to read a few poems from The Dirty Side of the Storm, starting with the water. In the morning, the water like a deckhand, a persistent pearl against the shore, who won't back down, take no, or be denied. It is there under the wharf, and soon under the house, whoring with any swamp rat or snake. It rings cypress knees with pearls, it dreams under the sun like cut cane, throwing back the salt you wash away, then wearing pilings down to air. Your houses wait on stilts tall as pillars, their sheet metal skulls bared to a mildewed sky. Against the fallen trees, rain and lapping tide meet, slapping of nets and fish and naked children pulling driftwood boats in one joyful noise around your sleep. In the afternoon, the water is there, only more, browner and grayer, no sweeping seaweed or foam, just its presence farther up your shore, like a dull brother-in-law in front of TV. He means something to somebody, but not you, not just now. Its slow wake seems harmless, the litany of waves before a storm, rolling benignly ashore, intoxicating. And then it is there, all gray length of it, rich sex of it. It wants you so badly, it pounds at the door. Let me take your smallness, your jetties, your broad coasts, your loam. It gathers at night beyond the curtain of mosquitoes, darker than the shut-down sky, the boarded-up clouds. Its desire thrums like an idling outboard. Ignore it, and it tows itself into your dreams. It's everywhere, every chance, all the time. It is more certain than death or love. It must have been conceived by death and love. When the last silt sinks under your feet, you will have to walk out on this water. The dirty side of the storm. Death just misses you. Its well-defined eye and taut rotation land on someone else. No need to study the sky for signs or watch the cows. Not with satellite loops, infrared imagery, reconnaissance flights shrinking the orange cones of uncertainty. If it makes you feel better, go ahead and push pins through a brittle chart. Your coordinates square neatly east of the worst wind shear, lightning strikes and bursts of air. All your convection steers clear of your splattered doorframe. The Red Cross mobilizes elsewhere. Take a good look at those oak roots from a calm doorstep and wait. The sadness is a surge carrying all its debris back to you. A flood that shoves clods of ants and snakes through your walls and then sits in your house for days and days. This is the dirty side of the storm. Would that death had blown straight through. One more from the dirty side. Psalm at high tide. Rain on the river's vinyl surface, water that glitters, water that hardly moves. Its branches witness to trees, to fronds, leaves, crab floats, pilings, shopping carts, appliances. The divine earth takes everything in its wounded side and gives back wholeness. It bears the huddled profane and endures the soaking venerated in its wild swirls. This river fixed with wooden weirs, radiant in misshapen glory. And lastly, a poem from, well, post-Dirty Side, I guess, titled The Diener. And the Diener is the person who runs the morgue, not necessarily the pathologist, but sometimes just the person who moves bodies around and sometimes the person who's really in charge of everything that goes on in the morgue. The Diener. We hated the early anatomists for showing us how fragile we are, how God's image is composite. The liver, the bright bruise of a sunset, the thyroid wrapped around our throats for luck. They saw our brains folded against our foreheads and knew our hearts pump dumbly on through the wash. And wily guts take the brunt of it, pushing to get rid of while we insist on taking in and taking in and taking in. Theirs was heresy, that is, a choice, to reach the artist by testing the art. Human suffering always the requisite cost. Change what keeps all of it the same, the teacher says. No new thing under the sun. What we make, let's make old instead. Older than the first tool, which smelled much like the body, the first blacksmith must have thought. Not quite like displaced blood, but blood at home in its place among other parts in their places. And that must be how we began to confuse the power to examine and change with the power to create, to be discrete agents. Why we like to see ourselves as whole, despite the Diener piling legs on a cot, despite the pruned artery tied and cut. Thank you.